I could replace the cherries with peaches and sauté them in a brown butter sauce. Head down against a brisk early December wind, Caitlyn Summers continued her musings as she strode past the shops on Main Street, oblivious to the fanciful decor that was intent upon luring customers inside for holiday shopping. Her thoughts remained focused on dessert prep as she kept walking. The holiday dessert menu had one job and one job only. That was to wow her boss, Chef Olivia Morgan, enough that she'd hire Caitlyn as a full-time pâtissier. Caitlyn's seasonal employment contract with Moretti's Farm-to-Table Bistro had brought her to Homestead Pass, Oklahoma 10 days ago in time for Thanksgiving festivities. She'd finally made her way to the town her mother once called home. A shiver raced over her as the wind whipped past, and fat flakes began a wayward descent from the darkening sky. Early Monday afternoon, yet the ominous clouds made it seem much later. Caitlyn rounded the corner of Main and Edison and hit a human wall. Oomph! She stumbled and her tote bag plopped to the ground. She reached out to steady herself and realized she was gripping a strong, muscled arm. She looked up. Her gaze connected with the concerned eyes of a tall cowboy. "I am so sorry." Caitlyn blinked and stepped back. The side of the brick building shielded them from the weather, and she took a moment to compose herself. "My fault completely." The cowboy scooped her tote from the sidewalk and returned the bag. Then he pushed back the rim of his black felt Stetson, revealing jet black hair, and looked her over. "Have we met? I'm not sure." Caitlyn returned his assessment. Not traditionally handsome, he had a pleasant face and a warm, friendly smile. It was his eyes, teal with a rim of gold around the pupils, that were captivating. "I'm Caitlyn Summers, the pâtissier at Moretti's Bistro." "Jim Brewer." "Good to meet you." The cowboy paused, then nodded slowly, his face lighting up. "The Lazy M Ranch staff Thanksgiving party last Monday. I do believe Liv said you made the pies." "Guilty," Caitlyn said. "Guilty pleasure, you mean?" Jim chuckled. "I had more pie than ought to be legal." Warmed by the compliment, she smiled. "I'm glad you enjoyed them. You made that pumpkin roll as well." "Yes, that's some God-given talent you have, ma'am." "Thank you." He studied her a moment. "I don't suppose you've seen the signs for the Deck the Halls event? We'd sell a lot of silent auction tickets if you were baking. I'm new to town. I haven't heard about the event." She'd been focused on her job, and she needed to focus on the other reason she was here, learning more about her mother before her contract was up. A recent discovery from her foster parents had pointed her to the small ranching town. "Got a minute for a cup of coffee?" the cowboy asked. "Brew's coffee shop is down the street. I'm happy to fill you in on the event." Caitlyn cocked her head. "Well, why not?" "I'd like that," she said. This might be a way to find out more about Homestead Pass, and maybe her past as well. Jim could hardly believe that he'd asked a pretty gal to coffee. His mouth had opened, and words had spilled out before he'd had time to overthink the situation. Probably because he actually needed this woman's help. He was co-chair of the Deck the Halls event this year, and was determined it would be a success. He held the door to the coffee shop and was greeted by the soft crooning of Christmas carols, along with the hum of customer chatter. A whiff of cinnamon teased his nose as the pastry chef slipped past him. She wasn't just pretty with long dark hair and sparkling brown eyes, but tall. It wasn't often he met a woman who breathed the same air he did. "I'll grab the coffee if you want to snag a seat," he said. "Sure, black for me. Do you mind if we sit near the window?" "No problem." Jim placed their order and brought steaming mugs to a booth tucked into the far corner. He placed their drinks on the table and slid into the seat across from her. "Thank you," Caitlyn said. He glanced out the window at the accumulating snow. "It's really coming down now. I hope you don't live far. No, I'm renting a house over on Adams Street. She smiled. Pretty sight, isn't it? Sure is. Though come February, we'll be grumbling and ready for spring. Not me. Caitlyn shook her head. I don't see snow often enough. No, where are you from? A little bit of everywhere. But my mother grew up here. Jenny Summers. Jenny Summers. Jim frowned. Can't say I've heard of her. She shrugged. It was a long time ago. Are you planning to stick around Homestead Pass? He asked. I don't know yet. There are a lot of variables. Sure, I get it. So you're a pâtissier. He paused, hoping he didn't sound like a yahoo. Is that how you pronounced it? Caitlyn grinned. Yes. How long have you been making those amazing pies? If he could get her on board for the fundraiser, he was sure they'd sell a record number of tickets. All my life, though, not professionally. It took me a while to finance my way through culinary art school. He mulled her words. Obviously, you like what you do. Baking is an expression of love in my world. I like that philosophy, Jim said. Behind them, the shop door opened, and men's laughter echoed. Jim turned to see Trevor and Lucas Morgan enter. Trevor's eyebrows shot up as he eyed Jim and Caitlyn. Lucas called out, Hey, Slim Jim. Jim gave a nod and turned his attention back to Caitlyn, praying they didn't wander over. Those are Chef Morgan's brothers-in-law, right? The Lazy M Ranch, she asked. Yep. There are 4 Morgan brothers, all my bosses. Why do they call you Slim Jim? He shrugged, irritated at the moniker. It's what passes for humor around these parts. I've got buddies called Dusty Boots and Handsome Hal. Caitlyn laughed, and the sound mesmerized him for a moment. I like that, she said. Jim smiled. Suddenly, the nickname didn't seem quite so annoying. Now he had to work up the courage to bring up the question he'd invited her here to ask. Caitlyn wrapped her hands around the warm mug and looked at the cowboy. Tell me about Deck the Halls. This is only the 2nd year. My mother and Bess Louder, the cook over at the Lazy M, put it together last year, so they're running it again. Jim cleared his throat. I lost my mother last year. Oh, I'm so sorry. Caitlyn knew only too well about loss. She'd come to this small ranch town seeking answers about her own mother, who died when she was a baby. Thanks. I appreciate it. He took a long swig of coffee. This year, I'm co-chair with Mrs. Louder. It's a 2-day event. Friday and Saturday, the weekend before Christmas. That's nearly 3 weeks from now. Yep. Friday night is the gingerbread bash, where entrants participate in a gingerbread house building competition. A silent auction goes on at the same time. It's held at the Homestead Pass Inn. Bess judges the contest. Saturday morning is a holiday breakfast at the church. That's followed by the artisan market in the school gymnasium. We have over 40 vendors from all over the county. They bring in shoppers from Elk City to El Reno. Last-minute holiday shopping? Smart. Smart, yes, but logistically, there's potential for chaos. How so? The market ends at 3 and the dance starts at 7. We've got to get the vendors out of there, clean up, and decorate in 4 hours. There's a dance? Yep. Deck the Halls dance. We have some local folks playing music. Chef Olivia caters the buffet and donates all the food. Later, there's horse-drawn wagon rides. Yes, Chef Moretti has the buffet menu on the staff schedule. She paused. Still, this is quite the project. How did 2 women organize such a jam-packed 2 days? Not easy. As this year's co-chair, my brain is overflowing. But it's a good cause. Entry to all the events except the dance is a donation to the town food bank. The dance is ticketed. The proceeds help those in our community who are in need during the holidays. Pastor McGinnis handles that. I'm impressed. She studied him, his kind blue eyes and easy smile. A potent combination. Where do I come in? Silent auction. Your pies would loosen wallets. Do you think so? Jim smiled. I know so. She couldn't help but be pleased that he had such confidence in her baking. How many pies? I'm thinking 2 dozen. 12 pumpkin and 12 pecan. 24 pies. Caitlyn did some mental calculations. Pumpkin and pecan are incredibly simple to freeze ahead of time. She looked at Jim. Are there pecans available in town? Yep, Riley Pecans, right here in Homestead Pass. Harper Riley is married to Lucas Morgan. We can get a deal on nuts. Wonderful. Now all I'll need is some help in a big kitchen. I can't use the bistro. Chef Olivia has a very busy schedule, and the tiny kitchen in my rental house won't work for an order this size. Jim raised a hand. I followed directions well, and I have a huge kitchen. We can bake there. He looked at her. It's for a good cause. Caitlyn chuckled. I can't believe I'm saying yes, but sure. Okay, why not? The Deck the Halls event was a great opportunity to shine in front of Chef Morgan and get to know the community where her mother grew up. She just couldn't let herself be distracted by this intriguing cowboy. She was here short term. After the holidays, she'd be gone. Holding out on us, are you, Jim? Jim turned around in the corral at Lucas Morgan's voice. He'd expected a razzing, and here it came less than 24 hours later. Nope. He adjusted the blanket on Blackie and continued to take the mare through her paces. Most of yesterday's snow had melted, providing a good training day to get the horse used to weight on her back. Who was that gal in the diner? Lucas grinned. Pastry chef at the bistro. She's coming up to the ranch this afternoon when she gets off work for a meeting with me and Bess. Hey, Jim, Trevor Morgan called out as he moved toward the corral. There's a gal down at the house looking for you. Caitlyn Summers. Jim looked at Trevor. Can you untack Blackie for me? Sure, but relax. Trevor chuckled. Bess is feeding her coffee and cinnamon rolls. There's no rush. I wondered why you shaved this morning, Lucas said. After grabbing his barn jacket and gloves from the fence, Jim turned on his boot heel and headed to the house. He slipped in the back door and made a beeline to the washroom. Jim, that you Bess called. Yes, ma'am. Just washing up. He stepped into the kitchen and found Caitlyn and Bess at the table. The pastry chef looked as pretty as she had yesterday. She smiled at him, and his pulse kicked up a notch. There you are, Bess said. Caitlyn and I were talking about her mama. Did you know she used to live here? Yeah, she told me. Have Jim take you to the library, Bess said. They keep all the high school yearbooks there. If you can find classmates of your mama's, they might be able to tell you about her and your family. That's a wonderful idea. Thank you so much. Bess waved Jim to a seat at the table next to Caitlyn. Where's Gus? He asked as he sat down. Dolly is in town. She and Gus took a bus tour to Tulsa. They're going to see the holiday lights at the Philbrook Museum and have dinner at the Brown Palace. Who's Gus? Caitlyn asked, looking from Jim to Bess. Gus is the Morgan boy's grandpa, he said, and Dolly is his sister. How's that new mare doing? Bess asked Jim. She's a beauty, not a bit skittish. They call our Jim the horse whisperer. The older woman's voice rang with pride as she patted his arm. This fella has a way with animals. That's a gift from God, Caitlyn said. Jim ducked his head at the praise. Sure, it was a gift from God, but he was blessed to love what came naturally. It is. Bess turned to Jim. Coffee? No, thank you, ma'am. Bess reached for the thick 3-ring binder in front of her and flipped it open. There's a small glitch in our plans. She took a deep breath. Jim gripped the edge of the table and leaned closer. I'm leaving for Texas on Thursday. Haven't even told the boys yet. My grandbaby is arriving early. Small glitch. Jim's heart pounded at her words. With Bess gone, it'd be up to him alone to make sure the event was a success. This wasn't a glitch. It was a disaster. Jim held the door for Caitlyn as they stepped out on the porch of the Morgan homestead. Hang on there a minute, Jim, Bess called. I forgot something. Be right back, he said to Caitlyn. Caitlyn nodded and looked out over the land as she held Bess's binder close. Snow still dusted the tall conifers, creating an impressive backdrop against a cloudless blue sky. Wreaths decorated the fences surrounding the ranch, along with fresh fir garlands and red velvet bows. The view tugged at her heart. It spoke of family tradition and pride, something she knew little about after years in foster care. Did the Morgans realize how very blessed they were? A moment later, Bess's voice floated out the screen door. "These are my cookie cutters. Give them to Caitlyn. She can return them after the event." She paused. "I'm so sorry to do this to you, Jim. Grandbabies are important, Bess. We'll figure things out. You've already got everything in motion. It's all good." Caitlyn smiled at the sweet interaction. "Oh, and I didn't get to make your mama's gingerbread cake for you," Bess went on. "Honest, Bess, not a big deal. Give me a hug before you go. And remember, you can always call me if you need to." "Yes, ma'am." The screen door creaked as Jim stepped outside. He carefully shut the screen and then the door. Taking a deep breath, he ran a hand over his face. Well, that was unexpected. He stared out across the yard, clearly upset. "I'll help you," she said. "Pardon," Jim looked at her. "I said I'd help you." Caitlyn nodded, confident with her decision. Sure, she'd be busy, but the holidays were about goodwill to man and all. Besides, Jim was a nice guy. He deserved a break. The cowboy blinked. "Seriously, why would you do that?" "I've never had the opportunity to participate in something like this at the holidays. It sounds like fun. Besides, how hard can it be?" Bess got everything started. "We're just troubleshooting, right?" "Mostly. I mean, we're managing a team of volunteers, so yeah, hitting a few bumps is guaranteed." Jim paused. "The thing is, you've already offered to bake 24 pies. Cookies, too," she added. "Right. Cookies." He peered at her. "Are you sure you know what you're getting yourself into?" "I do." Yes, she had total peace about this. She'd spent her childhood on the outside looking in. This was a chance to get involved. Participating in a community holiday event was nothing less than exciting. After all, her mother had been part of Homestead Pass's holidays long ago. Here she was, decades later, doing the same thing. Her heart filled with joy at the thought. Caitlyn's gaze took in the festive ranch decorations once again. As dusk descended, twinkling lights intertwined with garlands peeked out. She couldn't wait to get started. "So you train horses for a living," Caitlyn said. "That sounds much more interesting than my job. May I see that horse Bess mentioned?" Jim looked at Caitlyn, hoping his face didn't reflect how surprised he was at the comment. Not many folks outside the ranch took an interest in what he did. The fact was, most women in these parts yawned when they found out he hadn't collected brass buckles from years on the rodeo circuit like the Morgan boys. Nope. He was content training horses and managing the equine part of the Lazy M ranch. "Ah, sure. Absolutely," he finally said. "Follow me." Their feet crunched on the gravel and dirt as they walked from the Morgan homestead to the stables. Jim slid open the door and nodded for Caitlyn to follow him into the heated building. He led her down a rubberized center aisle to a stall where the black mare gave a nicker when she saw him. Jim ran a hand over the animal's withers and murmured a greeting. He received a low whinny. "This is what makes you happy," Caitlyn said. "Yes, ma'am. How long have you been with the Morgans?" She looked at him and held out a hand toward the horse. "May I?" "Sure." Caitlyn reverently placed her palm on the animal's back. "This is as close as I've ever been to any animal. No pets growing up, in my dreams." She offered a sad smile. "We'll have to plan a day to introduce you to the Morgan animal kingdom." "I'd like that." She glanced around the stables. How long have you worked at the Lazy M? I can hardly remember a time I wasn't working for the Morgans. Have you ever thought about starting your own business? It's crossed my mind, except the Morgans are like family to me. Hard to part with family. Yes, she breathed. It is. The short response, spoken with depth, left him curious, but he let it go. So what's next? Caitlyn asked. I mean, as far as being a co-chair, I want to be a help and not a hindrance. Read through that binder and let me know if you have any questions. He frowned. I guess since we're partners in crime now, I should show you around the town. Go over the event venues and procedures for setting up and tearing down. That would be great. We should exchange phone numbers. Caitlyn pulled out her cell and handed it to him. The bistro is closed on Sunday and Monday. She looked at him. We should get started on the pies as well. Yeah, you're right. How about if I give you a tour of town after church on Sunday? I'll switch my day off so we can bake on Monday. She nodded. That would really be helpful. Thank you. Anything special you need for baking those pies besides the pecans? I travel with my tools of the trade. Which means I'm set. Jim nodded. Sounds like we're ready to bake. Caitlyn drove home from the Lazy M ranch, mulling over the events of the last few days. She pulled into the drive of the tiny cottage she'd rented, grabbed her tote and the binder, then headed up the path to the house. For a moment, she stood admiring the Christmas tree and dancing lights in her neighbor's window. A brushing sound had her looking around. It came from the ivy bushes that surrounded the house. Dropping to her haunches, she looked under the bushes. Two green eyes peered at her and meowed. Oh, sweet kitty, what are you doing out in the cold? Caitlyn sighed and opened the front door. Come on in. The cat wasted no time. It simply strolled over the threshold, looked around, and meowed again. I know it's not much, Caitlyn returned, but it came furnished, so I can't complain. She closed the door and assessed the cat. The more the animal walked around, the more Caitlyn became certain it was pregnant. She reached for her cell phone. She knew one animal lover she could call. Jim. I hate to bother you, but I need some advice. I have a feline visitor. I think she's pregnant. Is there an animal shelter here? Yeah, but it's full up this time of year. Text me your address. I'll be right over. Jim arrived 30 minutes later with a large cardboard box. Thank you so much. She peeked into the box. What's all this? He smiled. Cat supplies. But I'm not sure I can take care of a cat. Why not? He put down the box and sat on the floor. The tabby immediately sidled over and rubbed her head against Jim's hand. I have 0 experience and I'm leaving in January. So far, Chef Olivia hadn't said a word about offering her a full-time position, so Caitlyn had said yes to temp job in California. You know more than you give yourself credit for, Jim said. Your instincts were correct. She's definitely pregnant. He scratched the cat's head. This doesn't have to be a permanent arrangement. Think of it as being a foster mom. The irony hit home. The foster kid becomes a foster mom. Jim stood and glanced around. Nice place. All it needs is a tree and decorations. It didn't seem worth it when I'm not staying long. That's one way to look at things. What's the other way? He cocked his head. I'm not exactly Mr. Christmas, but it does give me a lift to come home and see the nativity scene I've had since I was a kid on the mantle, along with some of my childhood ornaments on the tree. You have traditions, Caitlyn said. That's nice. More than nice. It spoke of family and heritage, something she'd lacked most of her life. It's also nice to see my animals sleeping beneath the tree branches. She looked at the cat. What about Miss Kitty here? Can I leave her alone when I go to work? Absolutely. However, I think it's best if I get her in for an exam. The local vet owes me a favor. I'll take her home tonight and bring her back tomorrow. He grinned. I'd keep her, but I already have 3 cats and 2 dogs. My place is out of control. Caitlyn chuckled, realizing Jim wouldn't have it any other way. The cowboy had a huge heart and she liked him even more for it. But she couldn't read too much into that. She'd come here to learn about her mother. She was pleased to help Jim, but in a few weeks, she'd be on her way. Jim grabbed 2 shopping bags from the passenger seat of his pickup, then reached for the cat carrier in the back seat before heading up the walk to Caitlyn's house. It took a little wrangling to get off work early so he could do a bit of shopping first, but he'd managed it. More importantly, he'd managed to evade Trevor and Luke's questions. "Meow," Miss Kitty protested loudly as he pressed the bell. The door swung open and Caitlyn's face lit up when she saw him. Jim's heart did a little thump at the smile she offered. "Clean bill of health," he announced as he handed her the carrier. "Lab work normal." The x-ray revealed 3 babies. 3. Her jaw dropped. "This is so exciting. What do we do next? We wait and see. That's it? Wait and see?" She put the carrier in the living room and opened the latch. Kitty shot out with an accusing glare. "That's how having babies works, Kate. Doc says end of the month." "It seems very inefficient," Caitlyn said. Jim laughed long and hard. "Never had anyone put it like that. I suppose you're right." She eyed the bag he held in his other hand. "More cat supplies." "Not exactly. I made a few stops in town and picked up some holiday spirit." "Do they sell that?" "You're kind of feisty today," he observed. "Oh yes, definitely feeling myself." I presented my holiday dessert concepts to Chef Morgan. She raved. Caitlyn had been delighted with her boss's reaction. "Congratulations. It's a good feeling to love what you do and have others appreciate it," he said. "Yes, that's it exactly." She inched closer to the bags. "No peeking," Jim said. He dipped his hand into one of the bags and pulled out a half-gallon of eggnog. "This comes from a dairy down the road. Nothing like real eggnog." "Ooh." With much fanfare, he pulled a wooden box from the other bag and handed it to her. Caitlyn carefully opened the hinged lid. She gasped. A nativity. Each piece was nestled against the velvet lining of the box. This was hand-carved by a local craftsman from Homestead Pass, maple and walnut. Caitlyn removed the pieces one at a time and placed them on the coffee table. "Oh my, such artistry. Thank you so much. This is very generous of you." "You're welcome." She sniffed the air. "I smell pine. Do you?" "Yeah, I nearly forgot. I've got something else in the truck." After grabbing the beribboned wreath and metal door hanger from his truck bed, he strode back to the house. Jim opened the door of the house, clipped the hanger on the top, and attached the wreath. Caitlyn was at his side, surprise on her face. "I thought you deserved a little Christmas in your life." As if on cue, soft snowflakes drifted from the sky, making their lazy descent through the crisp air. Caitlyn cocked her head and looked at him, her brown eyes a bit misty. She drew nearer, and he held his breath, fighting the urge to lean close and kiss her. "Jim," she whispered, "you really are a nice guy." Nice guy? His heart sank. Had he just been friend-zoned? "You should be the local historian," Caitlyn said. "I've learned so much about the town today. I can imagine my mother walking down the streets of Homestead Pass on a Sunday afternoon just like this." She pointed out the truck's window to the Hitching Post general store. "You said that store has been around for 50 years. That means Jenny Summers shopped there, and now her daughter has too." Jim stared at her for a moment before his gaze returned to the road ahead. He hesitated to ask what was on her mind, but proceeded anyway. "What's the story with your mother, if you don't mind my asking?" "I don't mind. I also don't know the story," Caitlyn murmured. "That's one of the reasons I'm here." "To find your mother." "No, to find out why she left Homestead Pass." "I'm confused," Jim said. She looked at him, her expression vulnerable. "You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to," he said. "It's okay. I don't know why, but for some reason, I feel comfortable around you. Like we've known each other for a long time." Funny, because he felt the same way. My mother died when I was a baby. She left me in the care of a friend. Ruby meant well, but she was a country singer on the road living in motels a lot. When Ruby got sick, she turned me over to the state. Jim nodded. His heart ached for her not having a stable place to call home growing up. No father in the picture at all. No, not even on my birth certificate. She sighed. 11 is a tough age to find a permanent home. One of my favorite foster parents owned a diner. I was basically free labor, but that's where I learned to bake. How do you know your mother is from Homestead Pass? He asked. I didn't until recently. My first foster mom found a box with some of my things in her attic. Things Ruby packed up with my favorite toys. She reached out to the agency, got my address, and mailed the box to me. There was a book tucked in with other things like her yearbook photo and concert tickets. The book had one of those if found labels inside, a book of poems. If found, return to Jenny Summers, 24 Livery Lane, Homestead Pass, Oklahoma. Livery Lane, I know where that is. Yes, I used online mapping to check it out, then researched the house. Someone else owns the place now. So you decided to visit? She nodded. I hoped to be here last summer, but there were job obligations. How did you find out about the position at the bistro? I routinely checked the local papers looking for mention of the name Summers. That's how I saw Chef Morgan's ad. We spoke on the phone. She said her aunt, who'd been her pâtissier, was traveling. Wow, that's Providence. Right? She believed the Lord meant for her to come to this place. I'm glad you're here, Caitlyn. He kept his gaze on the road, fingers tight on the steering wheel, as he realized how true the words were. And that scared him. He hadn't known her long enough to care this much, and she wasn't staying. He'd do well to remember that. Caitlyn stared at the numbers on the 2-story Tudor home. This was Jim's house. She did a double take at the trio of faux reindeer grazing on the lawn next to a sleigh filled with brightly wrapped packages. Oversized red and green ornaments led a path to the front door where red velvet bows decorated the porch pillars. There was evidence of outdoor lighting. Everywhere, laughter bubbled up. Jim Brewer was a paradox. Each time she thought she had him figured out, she realized she didn't. Last night had been spent sorting through how she felt after talking to him about her past. Caitlyn had never shared with anyone about her complicated upbringing. What was it about Jim that made her feel safe? She didn't know. Her head said to proceed with caution. She might be starting to care a little too much for the tall cowboy. Her heart, on the other hand, said it was okay. That he was a good guy, a long-haul sort of guy. That worried her. Her life hadn't seen much of anything long-term. How could she trust in something she'd never known? Caitlyn gathered all her cooking supplies and groceries into a small collapsible wagon and headed up the path. Before she could formulate a plan to navigate the steps, the front door opened and Jim stood there with a tan golden retriever on one side and a chunky dog of an undetermined breed on the other. He moved quickly down the steps and lifted the entire wagon to the porch. Thank you, she said. Glad you found the place. I'm guessing it's visible on the moon at night. Caitlyn laughed. That's some Christmas spirit you have there. Too much. He grimaced. My neighbors are a bit competitive, and I got sucked in before I realized. I think it's wonderful, she said. Follow me to the kitchen, he returned. Oh, and the dogs are Dobie and Jack. The cats are in the guest room while we bake. They're long-haired, and the last thing we want is additives in the pies. She barely heard him as she took in the clean lines of the house. High ceilings, polished oak floors, white paint. The place was uncluttered with comfortable furniture in tones of burgundy and gray. They passed a living room where a tall Christmas tree, understated in its decor, sat in the corner. Who decorated the place? I gave my mother a free hand. She moved in with me a few years ago after my dad died. It doesn't look like a mom decorated. Yeah, we had a few ground rules. No flowers, doilies, or throw rugs. No pink, purple, or yellow. I like the end result, so I haven't changed anything. Caitlyn chuckled. It's very nice, and your holiday spirit is notably subdued. This time, Jim laughed. Yeah, don't tell my neighbors. She followed him into the kitchen and nearly gasped. It was a chef's dream come true. Though a massive island in the center called to her, it was the industrial refrigerator and professional range that had her attention. Wow. I guess that means that this will work. Caitlyn smiled and ran a loving hand over the sleek stainless steel refrigerator. Let the holiday pie baking begin. She'd never felt out of place in a kitchen or baking pies, and she looked forward to today with Jim. Yet when the handsome cowboy shot her a grin, her heart skittered in response. This day might be more complicated than she anticipated.